Chapter 2. The Professor from Granthia. Mornings at the Grand Institute feel like the calm, orderly current of a gentle stream. Crystalline spires catch the light of Tytal's rising sun, refracting multicolored beams across the great campus mall. The Institute's neural archives hum softly in the background, while students from more than a dozen species drift toward their morning lecture halls. There was a harmony to it, an exhale after a deep, meditative breath. The Grand Institute of Higher Learning is one of the premier academic facilities in the Galactic Republic, what humans would call a university, though the comparison only goes so far. Unlike human academic institutions, most other galactic races have no fixed academic programs, no arbitrary graduation clocks. Their role was to lay the foundation for curiosity and discovery. Simply put, learning is considered a lifetime process, and it's the same here. A course of study might last 2 decades for a slow-maturing crystalline Granthian, or only a couple of cycles for a Crixari drone whose hive mind absorbs data like a sponge, provided it can demonstrate true critical insight beyond pure memorization. Some species arrive with perfect photographic memories, but struggle to connect facts into original thought. Others are engines of pure logic, yet score abysmally on empathy, turning every debate into a battlefield of ideas. A few default to confrontational thinking, thriving on combative discourse. Others are so innately peaceful, they must be taught how confrontation even works without shattering harmony. Then there are the Lumerans, tall, sleek, iridescent humanoid beings whose entire society is built on commerce, aesthetics, and flawless presentation. They show up on campus looking like living works of art, skin shifting through perfect gradients, dressing in immaculately tailored clothes, and every gesture a calculated pose. The Institute promptly puts them through empathy seminars, ethical philosophy, and long retreats in unadorned meditation chambers. By graduation, many emerge transformed. Hair deliberately tousled, colors muted to natural tones, outfits chosen for comfort over spectacle. Some even sport rumpled robes or faint stress lines from late-night debates, proudly wearing the imperfections as badges of newfound depth. Those Lumeran graduates become the galaxy's most formidable negotiators, even with species who refuse to do business unless they feel truly understood on a deep soul-moving level. The Grand Institute's true crown jewels were Xenobiology and intergalactic relations, yet its greatest strength lay in mental expansion itself. It stretches minds, bridges gaps, forces the combative to practice restraint, and the gentle to understand conflict. When you graduate, which is no small feat, life is your oyster, pretty much guaranteeing employment at any of the top galactic organizations. The Galactic Corps, Defense Institute, even the Imperial Advisory Councils if you can stomach the politics. Unless, of course, you're like my father and decide to become a research nerd, content to stay put among the spires and archives forever. Surprisingly, humans are considered one of the most well-rounded races here. They arrive with a messy blend of empathy, logic, aggression, creativity, and stubborn intuition. A little bit of everything. Professors love to say they're the glue species who are not the best at any one thing, but capable of understanding almost everything. Today was special. Professor Gronsik, as his students respectfully called him, was hosting a guest lecturer, Professor Thal. Professor Thal is a prominent Vloxian sociologist from the Granthia star system. Vlox are a peaceful species on the reptilian spectrum. Smooth emerald scales, graceful movements, and a cultural obsession with harmony that makes even Ylfathians look impulsive. Thal was brilliant, controversial, and, according to the campus backchannels, carrying research that certain galactic powers would rather keep buried. I was in the front row, as always, ready to assist with hollows, or field the occasional question Father liked to bounce off me. The amphitheater was packed. Feathered Frangahri perched on the upper rails, chirping softly. A cluster of Crixari drones occupied the back in perfect hexagonal formation, clicking in measured approval. Quorith floated in their anti-grav bubbles, tentacles poised over notepads. A few crystalline Granthians refracted the overhead lights into quiet rainbows. A trio of Lumerans clustered near the side aisles, their iridescent skin shifting colors as they networked even during lecture hour. One already sporting slight bedhead, undoubtedly intentional, a sure sign the Institute was working its magic. Even a pair of burly Vorlaxian warriors had squeezed into the oversized seats, probably auditing for combat diplomacy credits. Professor Gronsik, as I was firmly reminded to call him in public, floated at the center of the stage, tendrils weaving graceful introductions. His core glowed a steady, welcoming blue. To me, he was just my father, a fact that he absolutely hated me calling him in front of his students. I slipped once last cycle, calling out, "Father, the hollow emitters are misaligned," in front of a full hall and in Galactic Common. Galactic Common was the language we spoke while at the Institute. It was the universal language of the Republic. Needless to say, everybody heard me and understood me. All of his students looked up from their hollow pads. The silence that followed was so deafening, the hum of the neural archives reverberated through the lecture hall. Thrizik's core had flickered an embarrassed ruby before he replied smooth as ever.
Graduate Assistant Thrizik Gronsik, please address me as Professor Gronsik in academic settings. Familial nomenclature disrupts the harmonic flow of scholarly discourse.
Translation: Stop embarrassing me in front of the kids. Since then, I have been very careful, mostly.
Colleagues and seekers of knowledge,
He began, his voice projecting audibly through a neural vocal modulator attached to the side of his head.
we are honored today by Professor Tytal, whose recent work on predictive conflict modeling has illuminated currents previously hidden in the turbulent flow of galactic politics.
The audience pulsed polite approval, literally in the case of the Ylfathians present. Standing at nearly 8 feet, Professor Thal was unusually tall even among the Vloks. He wore a formal Vloxian outfit, a sleek, form-fitting white jumpsuit with a high collar that curved up to his cheeks and flared outward. The tips were embroidered with twin silver crescent moons of Vloxy Prime. To me, it felt like a strange blend of formal elegance and casual ease, but I'm no fashionista. Wrapped around his waist, precisely 4 times was a traditional Vloxian silver belt marking his high scholarly rank. And true to Vloxian custom, he remained barefoot. There was an elegance to his walk as he seemed to glide forward with a smooth sway. Deep jade, iridescent scales gleamed from under his collar, shimmering beautifully through shifting shades of green whenever they caught the light. His voice was smooth, almost melodic. The soft Vloxian hiss somehow never sounded threatening and drew the entire hall into a quiet, attentive trance. He spoke for nearly an hour without faltering, building his argument layer by layer, discussing the subtle shifts in shipping lanes, minor trade imbalances, quiet rerouting of helium-3 convoys, how they all interconnected. Each was presented as a statistical ripple that, over time, could cascade into galaxy-spanning geopolitical storms. The hollows danced with elegant probability curves, predictive webs, and historical overlays that matched real conflicts with chilling accuracy. Near the end, as he displayed his final model, showing how a single innocent tariff could ignite a galactic war, he looked out to the audience and his frills lifted ever so slightly. It was a micro-movement gone in an instant. I only noticed because I'd spent years reading Ylfathian micro-expressions and had picked up a few Vloxian tells along the way. Did he recognize somebody in the audience? There were too many in attendance that I couldn't tell. When he concluded, the applause was warm but subdued, exactly the kind of respectful, thoughtful ovation the Institute favors. No roaring cheers, just a ripple of appreciative clicks, chirps, and soft tentacled waves. A senior Quarath floated higher in approval. One Frengari trilled a brief melodic phrase that translated roughly to, "This could prevent wars before they begin." A Kriksari drone emitted a low, satisfied hum. Predictive harmony may yet temper aggressive currents. Thrizik's core glowed with quiet pride as he rejoined the stage.
An extraordinary contribution.
He declared, then turned his attention to Professor Thal and privately addressed him.
I propose we continue discussion in the rooftop garden, where the open sky aids deeper contemplation.
He nodded in agreement and thanked him for the opportunity. The audience began to disperse, still murmuring appreciatively. But as Thrizik started gathering the hollow emitters, a cluster of Quarath and Frengahri students swarmed him with questions about assignment extensions and neural link citations. Thrizik pulsed patiently.
I must return to my office briefly to address these currents. Graduate Assistant Gronsik.
He emphasized the title with a teasing mental nudge.
Will you escort Professor Thal to the garden first? Ensure he is comfortable.
I smirked inwardly. Playing the professional card again, Professor?
Harmonize, daughter,
He linked back, core flickering amusement.
and no father slips.
Of course, Professor. I returned, then turned to Thal. This way, sir. The garden view is breathtaking. Perfect for deep talks.
Lead on, Assistant Gronsik. Your father speaks highly of your insight.
He returned with a warm smile. We stepped into the transparent crystalline elevator together. It rose swiftly and smoothly through the spire, carrying us toward the 50th floor rooftop as the campus sprawled far below. Thal turned his dark, deep blue eyes on me. It was an intense gaze that felt oddly, almost uncomfortably personal.
Thrizik Gronsik,
He said softly, voice almost reverent.
born in New Boston Colony on Qualton 4. Just an infant and only days old when you lost your parents to the Ankh incursion. Xenobiologists, yes?
He didn't wait for an answer.
You were recovered by Thrizik with only a family hollow and no name. At 5, learned to speak 6 languages fluently, graduated from the Institute at 14 with full honors in xenobiology and top of your class. The youngest human to have graduated. No minor feat. Then given opportunities to work with the Galactic Corps and within the sole diplomatic organization. Refused both so that you could continue your research with your adoptive father.
I froze. The details were public record, technically, but no visiting lecturer had ever opened with them. It wasn't small talk, it was a dossier. I forced a neutral smile. You've done your homework, Professor. His silver frills lifted in what might have been apology or empathy.
When one studies the currents of history, certain lives become pivotal reference points. You, young Gronsik, are one such convergence, a survivor whose continuation defies many probabilities.
The words hung heavy. His gaze held mine, gentle but unflinching, as if he saw something in me I didn't yet understand. It was strange, borderline intrusive. My Holmes-trained instincts prickled. He was too specific, too knowing. But academics can be eccentric, and I knew many with odd quirks, including yours truly, so I brushed it off as scholarly thoroughness. Well, I said lightly, I'm just the assistant who fixes hollow glitches and fetches tea. Nothing too pivotal. He smiled, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a small palm-sized object. It was an intricately carved Vloxian amber crystal pendant, a warm purple stone on a simple cord.
For one who has already altered probability.
He murmured, pressing it into my hand. His scaled fingers lingered a moment, cool and deliberate. I barely had time to mutter a confused "thank you" before the elevator chimed and the doors slid open onto the rooftop garden. I quickly placed the necklace into my jacket pocket and guided him to a shaded seating alcove with a panoramic view of the spires. Make yourself at home, I said, adjusting the silk cushions. I'll prepare some Tytal mist tea, our local herbal blend, irreplaceable for clearing the mind after a lecture. Professor Gronsik swears by it, even if he calls it mildly stimulating mammalian fuel. Thal chuckled, a soft reptilian hiss.
A kind gesture. I will enjoy the view while you prepare the tea.
Despite the jabs and jokes, I cared for my father deeply and knew how much Professor Thal's visit meant to him. I wanted to leave a good impression. My father was never one for details, so preparing a tea tray felt right. It was a small human gesture in our Ylfathian world. I excused myself, promising to return shortly while giving him time to enjoy the view, and descended back down to the ground-level prep station. Brewing the mist tea was quick, the silvery leaves steeped in low-grav vapor, filling the air with a crisp, mint-like scent. Tray in hand, 2 delicate crystalline cups steaming gently. I headed back toward the garden path, where Thrizik would soon emerge from his office wing. That's when it caught my eyes. A faint glint. Something that shouldn't be there, high on the spire. The sunlight made it difficult to see. Something glistening and wavering. I couldn't make it out. It seemed to be teetering on the edge of the rooftop far above with an unnatural sway. It was too distant and too bright to clearly make out its shape. It fell, too fast to identify, too far to be certain of anything except that it was coming down hard and fast. My mind raced, and the calculations ran swift. 6 seconds before it hits the ground. What was it? Debris, equipment, a drone malfunction. My human instincts took over and dread twisted my gut, whispering that the shape was wrong for any of those. I traced its path, heart already pounding. And there was Father, floating quickly across the lawn, wrapping up a lingering student query, drifting directly beneath the plummeting speck. "Father!" I shouted, the forbidden word ripping free as the tea tray wobbled violently in my grip. Thrizik paused mid-float and turned toward me, tendrils curling in that familiar mix of inquiry and mild exasperation.
Daughter?
Everything unfolded in a blur, yet time fractured, slowing to a cruel crawl. Eyes locked, forced to endure every microsecond of my own private nightmare, and trapped in a catastrophe that I couldn't unwatch. The object struck the crystalline path mere meters ahead of him with a sickening, bone-deep crack that echoed through the promenade. Only then, in the chaos of the impact, did I register the flash of emerald scales splitting open, silver frills crumpling lifelessly against the ground. A body. Professor Thal. But the thought barely formed before a second, sharper sound cut through. It was a high-pitched, unnatural whine as something small and dark ricocheted from the shattered paving, streaking straight toward Thrizik's core. He had stopped mid-air at my call. Peripherally, I saw the projectile fly past him and heard a distant dull thunk, likely hitting one of the trees in the garden. Then I felt it, the sharp neuroconnection of agony. Bioluminescent fluid hissed into the air from his abdomen. The projectile had sliced open a searing line across his translucent membrane. He sagged mid-float, tendrils spasming, eyes fixed on me in confusion, then fell to the ground. "No!" my mind screamed. The tray slipped from my hands. Crystalline cups shattered against the path, mist tea spreading like green fog across a swamp. I ran to him. My adrenaline surged. All I could see was Father dimming and in pain. I had to think. Emergency services were already alerted. Someone nearby had triggered the alarm. "Get me a medic now," I shouted, dropping to my knees and pressing both palms against the wound to slow the fluid loss. 2 white medi eggs arrived seconds later, hovering silently only a few feet away. The pair drifted closer. Perfectly matte white and oval, each had a rectangular black screen for a face that wrapped around the top like a black stripe. 3 blue pixelated eyes mimicking Ylfathians were blinking back at me through the screen. Only 3 feet tall, these autonomous drones were known to work miracles. But my heart kept pounding. No statistics could calm me now. He was leaking too much biofluid and needed help fast. The one directly in front started to address me in its synthetic voice.
Are you?
"Not me," I snapped, trying to steady my voice despite the tremor inside. This was no time for human emotions. I tried to force myself to be the Ylfathian xenobiologist my father trained me to be. The patient in my arms. I closed my eyes, suppressed my emotions, and gave only precise medical protocol from my training. Patient is Ylfathian, suffering partial thickness laceration of the outer membrane, with resultant bioluminescent fluid extravasation. Loss of approximately 1 liter of biofluid. Immediate containment and bio-IV required. He needs an immediate medevac to an ICU.
Confirmed.
The first bot replied, then condescendingly added,
Minor corrections. Ylfathians are asexual. We will refer to the patient accordingly. In addition, this is not a war zone, so we will not medevac the patient. We will rush him to the ICU.
I wanted to throw something at it, or at least say something, but before I could, the second egg swooped in.
Do you mind if I take over and apply a biosuture?
It asked in an identical voice as the first, but kinder, less robotic. I nodded and shifted aside. An arm extended out of the egg holding a translucent film which had unfurled across the gash, sealing it with a soft glow emitting from the end of its arm. Fluid loss stopped almost instantly. A gentle medical light bathed Thrizik, and his breathing seemed to stabilize. The first bot turned to me.
For records, your relation to the patient?
I'm his daughter. It paused, tilting its body in slight confusion, then straightened itself.
Ah, you must be the adopted human female, Thrizik Gronsik. Then this is Professor Thrizik Gronsik.
The tone was almost too casual, inappropriate, but these were Ylfathian medieggs, not exactly known for their bedside manner. I simply nodded.
Do not worry.
The second, more empathetic bot added.
The patient is experiencing significant pain. Patient will likely not regain consciousness for the next few hours, and we will administer bio-IV shortly. Good chance of full recovery in 2 to 3 weeks.
The prognosis was positive, but I couldn't get rid of the cold dread that coiled in my stomach. I couldn't hear Father. I couldn't hear his voice. My mind was a void. For the first time in my life, the neural link was silent. I felt completely and utterly alone. I don't remember the journey to the infirmary. One moment I was kneeling on the path. The next I was beside a gel bed in the sleek chamber of humming regen pods and neural monitors, med drones swarming around us. They had already encased Professor Thal's body in a stasis field and moved him into the morgue. My father lay in a shimmering regen field, blue aura pulsing like distant thunder. A Quarith tech and 2 Ylfathian healers guided microprobes along the sealed laceration. The membrane was knitting together before my eyes, the tear regenerating whole again. Physically, he was mending, but his core still flickered erratically, waves of anguish rippling outward. For a Ylfathian, a membrane breach is more than injury. It is an existential violation, a rupture in the sheath that channels their very essence. Most would retreat into meditative harmonics, cataloging the disruption with detached equations. Thrizik didn't. We were linked again. The connection brought me out of the void. Although fragile, what came wasn't the pain in his thoughts, but something personal.
Daughter, do not worry.
He whispered in my mind. Even in agony, he cared for me. My eyes teared, but I held back. I wanted to be strong for him. My hand rested on his tendrils. He responded weakly, coiling a few dim strands around my fingers and draping another over my shoulder, a Ylfathian gesture of comfort, of connection. In that moment, my life with him flashed before me in vivid, aching fragments. One of my earliest memories, as a 3-year-old, gazing at the night sky on the plains of Ularen, where he showed me that the stars weren't just distant points. They were living harmonies, weaving stories of cosmic birth across billions of years. Late nights in the libraries, him pretending to scoff at my Holmes books while his tendrils lingered curiously over the pages, debating clues with me until dawn. The quiet moments of guidance, through my human awkwardness, my quirks, my doubts, turning a broken orphan into someone whole, someone capable. He'd given me logic, yes, but more. He was family, giving me purpose and the love of a father wrapped in gentle metaphors and glowing blue light. I appreciated him, loved him, in ways I would never have voiced, always hidden behind our playful jabs. But now, the thought clawed deeper. What if I had lost him? Orphaned again, adrift in a cold galaxy, the life we'd built shattered like the crystal teacups. He was the steady core that anchored my world, and for a few moments, I had lost him. I took it all for granted, assuming our currents would flow forever. A sharp ache bloomed in my chest, that raw human pain Ylfathians dismiss as inefficient. I hated it, having to face my vulnerability, the messiness of it all. It twisted my chest and thoughts into knots. I also knew that I needed it, to face it so that I come out of the other side stronger, sharper, and more real. It was a reminder that I was alive, that he was alive, and I never wanted to feel this pain again. As the night quieted and the healers stepped back, a nagging feeling born from my Ylfathian logic and my human intuition kept creeping up on me, setting my mind racing over all the events of the day. I replayed the moment over and over, the faint glint high above, the shadow shifting, Thal's body falling like a discarded puppet, that small dark object buzzing through the air, ricocheting with unnatural precision. None of it added up. The pieces wouldn't connect. Something was wrong. like a whisper in my thoughts, a clue half seen in the fog.